My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today we're going to talk about the economy. We're going to answer some questions along the way. Number one, is the economy good or bad? And I also want to take a look at the question, if Donald Trump was president today, what would he be saying about the economy? Also, I want to answer the question, if Trump were president, what would his supporters be saying about the economy? Now, I want to take away some of the drama here. Right now, most people think the economy is not doing great. Less than 10% of Republicans or Trump supporters believe the economy is doing well. Actually, over 90% of Republicans think the economy is just a horror show right now. Things are terrible. So let's take a look at that. Now, I want to be as empathetic and sympathetic as possible here as I go through this, although numbers are numbers. So if you are struggling, then the economy would seem very bad. There are about 330 million people in the United States, and they all can have a subjective opinion. However, actually, let me give you an example of that. When I was younger, a lot younger, let's say in the late 80s, I was doing terrible. I was having a hard time. But there were a lot of people in the 80s that were doing well. I saw them all the time. I worked in Manhattan, all right? I worked in New York City. There were plenty of people making money. The stock market was doing well most of the time. And the economy, for the most part, was doing well. But I didn't walk around saying that the economy sucked just because I was having difficulty. I didn't get my legs underneath me yet, right? Like I just finished getting my college degree, but I hadn't really hit my stride yet. So because of that, because I'm not a victim-oriented person, I decided to do the right things and keep pushing and working hard. And therefore, I end up having more success. But because I wasn't having success at first doesn't mean that the economy was bad. It was a me problem, not a United States economy problem. So in thinking about this, we really have to take a look between subjective, which is opinion, and being objective and having objective truth of what really is. Because there are economic indicators that actually assess whether the economy is good or bad. And no matter where you are on the spectrum, that doesn't change the facts. So let's take it from the top. Let's take a look at the stock market. The stock market, of course, is not the only indicator if the economy is good or bad, but it's an indicator, and it's very important to a lot of people, so we need to talk about it. Right now, the Dow Jones, on Friday, it hit a brand new record high at 41,563. Now, it's hard to keep up with this because there's a brand new high on the stock market like every other week or less than that now. There's been about 30 new highs for this year. So no matter what anybody would say, it's been great for people in the stock market. So going back to one of my original questions, what would Donald Trump be saying right now if he was president right now? He would be saying it every single day, all day, about how great the stock market was. And he would try to pump up his supporters and say the stock market is at record highs and it's because of him. And his supporters, who just seem to lack critical analysis, would just go along with him, right? They would just go, oh, it's Trump's, the reason why the stock market's so great is because of Trump. Of course, and they would all say that the economy is great. And overnight, the economy or the consumer confidence would go up because his supporters just believe whatever Trump says. And Trump just says whatever he wants to say anyway, and he tries to take credit for things that are unearned. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So yes, if Donald Trump were president right now, you would not hear him stop talking about how great the stock market is. But again, that's only one indicator. It's not all of them. Let's take a look at the interest rate. The interest rate is over 5%. Now, but if you go to a bank right? You can now, because the interest rates are high, you can get a CD, which is guaranteed money. It's basically the same thing as a savings account. You can get it at 5%. Now, is that good or bad? It depends on where you are. If you have a high interest rate, buying a house right now is a bit of a burden. If you want to buy a car, a higher interest rate, it's a bit of a burden. Absolutely. However, you can, as a politician, just say it's blanket bad because it's good in certain instances. I'll give you an example of that. So when I was a kid, I would get, let's say, an allowance of $1 a week. If I did extra chores, my father would throw me a $5 bill or something like that. That's basically the allowance that I got and most people got. Nothing special. But throughout Donald Trump's life, he received as a gift, most of it to avoid paying taxes, but his father gifted him, get ready for this, $413 million. Okay. So if he's supposed to be a great business person, and we'll talk about that later, there's too much to talk about on this, but you could be the worst business person ever. You could be a person who doesn't even want to know about business. You could be a person who doesn't even know what a dollar bill looks like. If somebody handed you $413 million and you put it into a 5% CD, let's do the numbers. What you would get back is $20,650,000 per year. You don't have to know anything about business to do that. You just take your money and put it in a bank. Now that 5% is awesome. So when we say the 5% is bad, interest rates are high, you can't just go, that's bad. No, because it just depends on what part of the seesaw you are on. Why do interest rates go up? Interest rates go up because it's a way for the Fed to pump the brakes to slow the economy down. Because when the economy moves too fast, there becomes inflation. We're complaining about inflation. So if you want to complain about inflation, what you do is you move up the interest rates to slow that down. If you're Donald Trump, he complains about the inflation, but he also complains about the interest rate. That's like saying I'm complaining that I have a fast car, but I'm also complaining that the fact that the car has brakes. Like, you can't be complaining from both sides of the issue because it means you don't understand the issue. And if we try to say that Donald Trump does understand economics, well, then we also have to say that he's lying then. So he's either A, he doesn't understand, or B, he's lying. And then we have to look at his supporters and say, are you apathetic, that you just don't care, you just listen to your one person speak? Or are you just that ignorant? Because the numbers are there for everybody to see. This isn't rocket science. This is pretty easy. So the interest rate coming up is a tool that the Fed uses to slow down the economy. What does that tell you? It means that the economy was doing well. So if you want to answer the question, is the economy good or bad? Is it going well? Yes, the economy was going that good. And so therefore we need to put the brakes on it. Let's take a look at unemployment. When Biden took over, the unemployment rate was 6.3%. Let's not fool ourselves. When he took over, Trump was in office. So then, during Biden's administration, it fell to the lowest it had in 54 years at 3.4%. Now, you might be a Trump supporter here, so I need to say that twice because, I don't look like Donald Trump, so you probably don't listen to a thing I say. But it was at 6.3%. It fell to the lowest that it has in 54 years, down to 3.4%. 3.4 is lower than 6.3. Now, to be fair, it has moved up a little bit. It's currently at about 4.3%. But to be fully clear, 4 to 5% is considered to be excellent. Are we in that? Yes. So what have we figured out so far? The unemployment is amazing. The stock market is amazing. Let's take a look at this too. If you have any money at all, right? Like a lot of these Republicans complain, oh my God, I have fiscal policies, I need money. Okay, If you put your money in the stock market, you're going to make a lot of money. If you put your money in a CD in a bank, which is guaranteed, you're going to make a good amount of money. If you decide to get real estate, let me give you an example. If you lived in Las Vegas, and we're not unique, there are a lot of other places like this, the rates of increase in Las Vegas are that if you bought a house 7 years ago, you have doubled the price. Your home has increased in value by double. So let's put that into perspective. 7 years ago, 2017. If you bought a house in 2017 in Las Vegas that was worth $250,000, you are now sitting in a $500,000 home. So again, wherever you put your money, you're going to make a lot of money. So what are these people complaining about? What they're really complaining about is that Trump is not in office. That's what they're complaining about. So what would Trump tell you if he was in office right now and these were the facts as they are? He would be sitting there like just playing with himself. He's so happy that these numbers are the way they are. Don't fool yourself. All right, so let's take a look at wage increases. Wage increases right now are ahead of the inflation rate. Let me say that again. Wage increases are higher than the inflation rate, which is obviously you would think is good, right? But no, Republicans and conservatives and Trump will complain. They think this is bad. Why? Because they think it increases inflation. They would prefer to see a work populace that doesn't make much money. They don't want to increase the minimum wage. They don't want to have workers make more money. That's why they are totally and completely against unions. They don't like collective bargaining. They don't want workers to have any power. They want every place to be a right to work state, which really means the boss has the right to fire you for any reason, no matter what. And that's just the truth of it. So if we know this, how in the world, are people supporting a political party or a president, ex-president, who literally wants people to make less money because it's better for corporations? It makes no sense. Let's continue. Under the Biden administration, there's been 15 million new jobs created. Now, 800,000 of those were created in manufacturing, which is great because we're putting some of these workers back to work inside the United States. Also, it's happening, and I don't know if you notice this where you live, but I can tell you where I live, there's always people working on the streets, they're working at the airport, and this is because they're dumping a bunch of money into United States workers to give them work and to push the economy. So there's a lot of people who are at work right now, or at the end of the COVID lockdown, were not working. So a lot of the money went into infrastructure to build streets and bridges and hospitals and airports and what have you. And this has spurred on the economy. This is why you're starting to see a lot of Republicans, the mayors and governors who were obviously former Trump supporters, some of them are saying that the Democrats have been so much better because they are spending money on American workers. They're putting them back to work. And that's why a lot of them are shifting over. But obviously not all of them. So this, I think, is super interesting when we talk about the unemployment rates. So the unemployment rate right now is very low, like we had discussed. But here's something. There are 7.2 million able-bodied men between the ages of 25 to 54 years old who dropped out of the workforce. Now, how does that happen? You have these able-bodied men that are in their prime of life. They're not working? I want to know where did their values go? Where is their meaning and purpose? Where is their ambition? Well, we know they don't have it. That's one. But the other thing that's important to note here is who's taking care of these people? Who are the mothers and fathers that are allowing these able-bodied men to sit at home, smoke marijuana, play with themselves, play video games, and sit there on social media all day, every day, messaging and tweeting and doing all these things about how great Donald Trump is. And yet they're sitting at home and their mother is supporting them. How is this possible? Like I said, ironically, most of these types of men, they're angry. They dislike people. They dislike themselves. They hate women. And so they attach themselves to Donald Trump, and they love that. But yet, they're taking handouts, whether it's from the government or they're taking handouts from their aging parents, and they feel okay with it. This is the world we live in right now. Like, Donald Trump has this thought that, like, the people who like him, they look at him as like he's masculine. I have never seen a more feminine man in all my life. When did it become masculine to whine, cry, complain, be a victim, blame everybody else for all of your problems? He reminds me in Las Vegas of all of these trust fund babies that I deal with in Las Vegas. That whenever things get hot, whenever things get hard, whenever things become a test, they can't deal with it. They back out because they have never been through hard times before. They always have mommy and daddy backing them up with a bunch of money. And in terms of like Donald Trump, he got $413 million. And he has a lot more handed to him by these, let's call them ignorant supporters that just keep throwing him money. It's amazing to me. He is not a role model for masculinity. He is the exact opposite of that. He just complains the whole time and can't speak the truth at all. And I've never heard this guy say, I'm sorry, once. Not once. Even when he's completely and totally wrong. Go back to the jobs for a second, which is really interesting. Is the economy good or bad? One thing we have to consider is that there are more job openings right now than there are people actually looking for work. So there's a two-part thing here. Is the economy good or bad? The economy is amazing because there's a lot of jobs out there for people. But you could also say the economy is amazing because there's so many people that could be on the dole, that could be living off of other people who are obviously doing well enough to take care of these freeloaders, who unfortunately most of them are young men, which is really embarrassing to say as a man myself. There is very little that you can look at in terms of the economy to say it's bad. We can even look at the GDP. The GDP, the gross domestic product, right now is at 3. 3 is good. It's not as high as when Bill Clinton was in office, that's true. But let's go back a little bit. When Trump was in office, it was 2.3. For you Trump supporters out there, 2.3 is less than 3. So that means the GDP right now is better than it was. To go back to Obama, it was at 2.2. So for about, you got 8 years of Obama, for about 12 years, the GDP was around the 2.2, 2.3 range, and now it's higher than that. And now you're going to complain? So you got to ask yourself, if the economy is good or bad, maybe it's your fault. Like, maybe you're not looking at the world the correct way because you're not reading the numbers here. Now, we can get into this more at another show. I don't want to belabor the point because there's somebody out there saying, well, the economy is bad because prices are high. Prices are high. Who's responsible for that? Like I said, I'm a marriage and family therapist. If I want to raise my rates to $2,000 an hour starting tomorrow, what, are you going to blame the economy for that? Or are you going to blame me? Right? And there are reasons why that there's inflation. That's true. But inflation right now is below 3%. So the prices are high. Ask yourself why. And we're going to talk more about that in another show about corporate greed. And if you are a low-income person or a middle-class person or even a high middle-class person and you don't want to talk about that subject, you don't want to talk about how a lot of these major companies are merging together and causing basic monopolies, and these billionaires are laughing their way to the bank because when they see a little bit of inflation, they double that number and then put it on the person or the consumers like me and you. If you don't want to look at that and you want to You want to protect billionaires and you want to protect huge corporations at the expense of you and your family? Have at it. You can do that. But I'm giving you the numbers. There's nothing you could say that's any different, including the people in my own family who, for some reason, I don't know why, but they forget where they came from. They did not come from a billionaire family to where Trump wants to solve all these problems by giving other billionaires more tax breaks. How does that help? If you really want to help somebody, give them the opportunities to get an education. The biggest social justice leveler in this world is education. Everybody deserves to have a good education, starting from kindergarten or even before that, at these Head Start places. Although Republicans are against having Head Start and they want to eliminate the Department of Education. There's nothing they do that will ever be there to help a person who's on the lower rung in terms of society. If you make it up to the top, they go, oh good. But they don't expect you to get there and they don't want you to get there. They make it almost impossible for you to get there. But if you do, then good for you. I don't think it should be that way. What it should be is that everybody has a good shot from the day they're born. They should be getting free immunization shots. They should be getting whatever. Let's not get into that today. Let me answer the question very straightforward. Is the economy good or bad? The economy is good. It's better than it was. What would Trump say if this was the economy that he was in? He would say that the economy is amazing. What would Trump supporters say about this economy right now? If Trump were president, they would be saying that he's the greatest president ever. And they would point to all the numbers I just showed you. Thanks for listening. I hope you thought that was fun. I'll see you next time.